So recently I just thought I'd try out making dragons out of polymer clay also. A little bit different than my usual paper mache. Well, I made this guy. I didn't film any of it when I was making him just because I wanted to see how he would come out. And I think it came out pretty good. So figured I would make another one and film the process this time. Well, this is the beginning process, trying to figure out what I'm going to make. So the first step is to make a armature out of wire. So I took some wire that I had and made a basic lizard form, as you can see. I wrapped it around like that so the clay would stick to it better. I detached the original audio from this video because my wife and son were in the background talking and you could hear them. So I took it off. So I'm waving my hand around like this and pinching things, as you can see, because I forgot what I said. But anyway, what I'm just saying is I'm going to put foil around that form there to bulk out the middle so I don't use as much clay. So here's the final armature, bulked out with foil and then wrapped in tape. I guess I really didn't have to wrap the wings up with tape. I should have just left them as just the wire, I think, because it bulked it up a little too much. So that's the basic stance I want this guy to have, and I'm going to attach him to that wood base there. And I'm going to add some rocks and some gravel and paint it look like ground on that wood base so it looks like a scene. Alright, I'm going to take this guy and I'm going to attach him. Like, there's going to be like a rock here. He's going to be like standing off the rock. So in order to do that, I'm going to take this piece of wire. I'm going to attach it to his leg, and then I'm going to drill a hole. So this is going to be attached to his leg. I'm going to drill a hole in here. It's going to be there. So this will be here. It's going to go through and into the board to hold it together. I'm going to wire it on with this, and then once it's wired on, I'm going to wrap it with epoxy Sculpt. So on this part where I wire the wire to his foot that goes into the board, my wife called me over and asked for some help, and I shut the video off and forgot to turn it back on. So I got a small part where I'm actually doing a little something. So you can see there I have the wire attached to the leg, and I put epoxy Sculpt around the leg there to hold it together. Now I'm going to take I rolled out through my pasta machine the Sculpey, and I'm going to attach it to the body. So as you can see here, I covered the body in Sculpey, and on the top of the tail I didn't use Super Sculpey, I used Sculpey Primo because tips of things like to break off, so I decided I would use Sculpey Primo on certain parts of this so it's more flexible, because Sculpey Primo is really difficult to break and I like the way that works, so that's why I did it that way. So now I'm going to smooth out things. He looks kind of rough with the layers I put on there, so I'm going to get a rake and try and smooth him out some so he looks a little better. And then I guess I quit doing that. I'm going to add some musculature in here. Now as I watch this back, I'm noticing that his torso is more humanoid than dragon. I wish I would have done it a little differently. I think he came out really good in the end. As you can see, I do it like this, and I keep the ridge going down his back, but when I was looking at him, he looked way too muscular. He looked like a dragon bodybuilder. So I decided to scrape a lot of that stuff off. I did like the way I did the rib cage. I added some ribs that were kind of like larger and exposed, but I ended up pulling it off because I put plates going down his stomach and down his tail, and they weren't going to lay right over top of the ribs, and you wouldn't have been able to see them. So I decided to scrape that off. I kept the chest the way it is, but I scraped a lot of other stuff off. And I also wanted to make this with removable wings, so I on the base of the wing there that attaches to the body, I covered that with epoxy sculpt, and that became hard, and I got 2 wires hanging out there that kind of poke into the body, and I make a spot in the body where this is going to attach to. That way, if I'm going to put this on my Etsy site to sell it, when I ship it, it will be a lot easier to ship because the wings are removable and it won't break as easy. I'm now using Sculpey Primo on the wing fingers because it's a lot more flexible, and it's less prone to cracking and breaking if you use Sculpey Primo, which is what I did. I kind of wish I would use it on the whole wing, that way, because there's that gray stuff cracked a little bit. And as you see, I'm flexing and showing you how the flexibility. This is after it's been baked, and it's pretty flexible and it doesn't break. So if you're doing parts of any kind of sculpture and you want it to be flexible, throw some Primo on it. Alright, now I'm trying to put the spot in the back of the dragon where the wings are going to attach. I'm bulking up the back here and putting in the wing so it will just slide in there, and you can just put some super glue in there and put that on there and it should hold. So that's what I'm doing. I'm filling that out on both sides to make sure it's going to fit. And as I go, I'm adjusting things as I go. I apparently didn't like how large the sail on the back of the neck was, so I cut that off, and I cut the one going down the back of the tail off also. I don't draw out the way these dragons are going to look ahead of time. I just kind of play it by ear as I'm going through. Whatever pops into my head and thinks looks good, that's what I go with. So as you see, I still have the ribs on there. I haven't taken them off yet. So now in this picture, you can tell that I've stripped those ribs off of there and kept some of the other stuff. The way I made the head, the way I sculpt the head on my paper mache dragons, I figured I would do that the same way here. I'm going to make 2 halves of the mouth and then sculpt out the insides and everything and add the teeth. I tried to make a mouth where everything is together, and I try to get the tools in there to sculpt things, and I found that very difficult. So I decided to take this route. I'm adding details in the inside of the mouth as I go, and then I'm going to build the tongue and everything, and then I'm going to attach it to the end of the neck and then sculpt everything around that. So now I'm adding the plates to the underside of the belly. I figured I would roll out some clay on my pasta machine, make it flat, and then I made a snake and attached the snake to the bottom of the tail so I would have a natural ridge there. As you can see, I'm pinching it in the middle there to give it some sort of spike kind of in the middle of the plate there. So having something under there makes it a lot easier when you do that. So I'm basically cutting the pieces out, attaching them, and then texturing them as I go. I'm using my dental tool and then cutting some lines into it to give it some some wear and some texture. So, and then I also take another tool to poke some holes in it. I'm also now switching over and I'm adding teeth. I've already baked the mouthpieces here, so I'm going to add teeth to it. So I'm put some bacon bond on there, and I'm rolling out the teeth as I go, and then attaching them to the mouth, and it's sticking into the bacon bond. And the amount of bacon bond I have there, I'm just putting the tooth in there, and it's filling in the gaps in between there for me, so I don't have to blend anything in there. So that's basically what I do to the top and the bottom jaw. Add a bunch of teeth, and then I'm going to bake it again. And I also pre-painted the inside of the mouth before putting it on the body. So I did not, however, film that part for one reason or another. I don't know if I tried to push play and it didn't play. That's happened to me quite a few times, or I thought I pushed play and I did a bunch of stuff and I go look at my phone and oh my gosh, it's not playing or recording. So I've lost quite a bit of stuff from doing that previously. So that could have been what happened. So basically all I did was I painted the inside of the mouth red. It's really not real exciting, but I painted it, and then you can bake that paint after you do it and leave it on there. So that's what I did. So now I'm back on scales on the belly. I had done the ones on the tail one night, and it was getting late, so I quit doing them. And then the next day I didn't feel like doing scales, so I ended up sculpting the inside of the mouth. So I'm back to doing this on the once I got to the belly scales, I wanted to have a different kind of pattern on there, so I put some scales on either side, and then the scale that overlaps in the middle I cut to kind of like a trapezoid shape, so I could get a different kind of pattern on there. So I continue this pattern all the way up his belly and all the way up his neck. I of course stopped short of where the head was because there's no head to put anything on. And from looking at it from this angle here, you can see how I did the foot there, or the leg there, that's going to go into the wood. It's got a epoxy sculpt around it. I wish I would have continued epoxy sculpt up through the knee, because the knee was a little bit weak and cracked a little bit, so I could have used a little more strength there. It's one of those live and learn things. Now I'm going to add some spikes to the end of the wingtips to give it some claws, and I attached, I'm using translucent Sculpey Primo for that, the tips of things, so it's a little more tough. And then I'm wrapping it, and I'm going to wrap it and make it look like the end of a finger, and I texture these tips and make it look nice. I also cut the tips of them off because it seemed a little too long apparently. So after I smooth this out, I get the scissors out and cut the tip off of that and make it into a spike. Though I did this for all of them. I didn't show you the film of all of them. I cut it all out because it's pretty much the same thing on all of them. Okay, for these wings I was going to do something different. I'm going to mix my cloth mache in with the polymer clay here. I'm going to take this piece of sheet, dip it, put some glue all in here, put some black paint in there so this will come out black when it dries. I'm going to dip it in there, and I'm going to apply it to here. And we use these clothespins to clip it to the ends of the wings here. I've wrapped each one of the ends of the wings. I've wrapped it with some, what do you call that stuff? Cling wrap. So if I get it won't stick here, so I can cut it back away from that, because I don't want it to go over the top. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pour my glue, mix the black in there, dip, and then apply. And I put them on silicone mats so they won't stick to the silicone mats. Usually I will tie strings like Dan Reeder does, tie strings to all these things, but this is pretty lightweight and I don't think they're going to bend down. I think it'll be fine, just leave them the way they are. So here goes. Alright, so I've filled up my glue, squirted in some black paint, mix it all up, and dip the cloth in there and then spread it out. As you do this, I spread some glue on the wing itself, so sometimes it doesn't want to stick and slide, or sometimes it sticks and doesn't slide around where you want it to. I had to pull it off the first time because it didn't come out the way I wanted it to, so this is the second attempt, and the second attempt stayed where I wanted it to stay. This you have to have a lot of patience doing this, because when you pull on one end, it comes off the other end, and to get it all perfect, it can be a pain. So after it dries, I'm coming back and cutting it out. I was able to bake this, and I was looking online about baking glue in the oven, and some people said don't do it, and other people said it was fine. So I did not bake it very long. I had previously baked the wing a lot longer, so it would remain baked and fine. But when I threw it in the oven, see, I'm adding more clay to it, so I wanted the underside of the wings, because of the way the cloth is stuck on here, you can't really see the wing finger, so I'm going back with clay and putting it on top of there and texturing it out so I can get some texture on the under fingers, so you can see that definition and that the split and know exactly where it is. So this had to be baked again, so I did bake it in the oven again, and I didn't notice any different smell other than what usually when you bake polymer clay, it has a smell to it. So I think it came out fine. I did live through it, so I think we came out all right on the other end of that one. So here I'm just adding, I rolled out the Sculpey on my POS machine and then put it under and cut it out and put it underneath there. Here I'm adding the fingers, so I drilled 2 holes to stick some wire in so the fingers would have some support. And now I'm adding some claws to the fingers and then detailing it out, and putting the knuckles in and putting the folds in where the fingers go underneath. And then I add some spikes to the top of the wing there. So I'm adding spikes, and as you put the spikes on, and then I texture each spike as I go. And then I'm putting a little bit of armor or scales on the wing fingers. After that, I'm taking the gray Sculpey and flattening some pieces out and adding and make it look like scales over top of the wing knuckles, or the top of the fingers there. And then this is the base of the wing that's going to go into the body. I had some spikes that are on the body, and I wanted to match those spikes going up the wing, so I'm adding some spikes on the wing that protrudes from the back of the body. So this is what I'm doing here, and now I'm painting the wing. This is jumping a little ahead. I'm already done with the body, but I'm splitting this video into 2 parts, so it's not quite as long. So on the other video, I'm going to show you how I put all the armor and all the spikes on the body and finished sculpting the head and all that. But here I'm painting the wings. I use mostly a dry brushing technique for the wings. As you can see, it's going to be a brownish dragon, and the wings themselves are a grayish, the membrane's a grayish white color. Okay, so make sure you jump over to part 2 of the making of this dragon video. If it's not out there yet, wait for it. It'll be out there soon. And if it is out there now, just go ahead and jump over. And thanks for watching, and there'll be more to come.